Hey, gang, it's me, Dr. Steve. And as the film Sound of Freedom tops box offices around the country, it's important to highlight all forms of neglect and harm that so many of America's children are facing today. I mean, the fact that the left feels emboldened enough to push back against such a film and even insinuate that the issue at hand is nothing more than a conspiracy theory shows that the well being of children is not quite at top of everyone's priority list. Today, I'm joined by a real hero, someone who's dedicated her life to helping children in need, teaching them about God, and helping them to flourish through imperfect and even traumatic situations. Natalie Tanasi is a founding member of an organization called the Movement Messenger, which seeks to help build up and protect children living with parents or guardians suffering from addiction. Natalie, thanks so much for joining us here. It's great to have you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Steve. I'm pleased to be here.
Well, it's awesome to have you here. So just tell us, what is the Movement Messenger?
Well, we are a nonprofit with the hope to reach children specifically that are dealing with trauma and children of addicts.
And how
And
did you start? Yeah, how did you start that?
well, that's a great question. And if I could just kind of take you back a little bit or ask the audience to close your eyes and just imagine a child whose Christmas list and letters to Santa included a request for their mom or their dad to get sober. They didn't
Mm,
ask for a pair of shoes or a bike. They just asked for their mom or dad to get healthy. Maybe you've heard of a story of a young girl sitting outside crying while her mom shot up heroin on the verge of overdose. Picture a child or a teenager whose friends ask about their mom's arm bleeding because she just shot up in the bathroom, or having sleepovers and your friends come and your parents' friend actually overdoses in the driveway. And
that,
the reality is that's my story.
mm,
I was that girl. And that own story inspired me to give back to this very specific demographic.
yeah.
One of the things I found with traumatic experiences, or it can do one of two things in people's lives. You see all kinds of Harvard researchers about, one twin ends up in prison and one twin ends up successful, and they both say, oh, it's because of my father, and their father was in prison. And
Right.
these traumatic experiences can do one of two things. They can charge you to want to overcome, or you can replicate the experience. And so
Mhm.
we want to provide an experience for kids that charges them to want to overcome, that gives them a vision of a life that looks different than maybe the life that they've had, and show them love and a pathway to healing to change the trajectory of their life.
Wow, that's awesome. So, how widespread is this? How many kids are living in households with serious addiction issues?
Yeah, according to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration, they report that one of 8 children have a parent with a substance abuse disorder.
Mm,
These children, like these adverse child experience, are also known as ACE, is like very traumatic for children, as anybody could assume. But it's linked to chronic health, it's linked to mental illness, substance and adolescence, as well as in adulthood substance abuse. It also affects their education, earning potential, and the another staggering statistic is that 90% of our incarcerated today come from
yeah.
a child who experienced trauma.
Wow. Wow. 90%. Yeah, that's a pretty explicit, blatant pattern right there, right? I mean, so
Yes, absolutely.
what do you do? How does the Movement Messenger? What do you do specifically in order to help steer children more towards? I like what you said, and I see. I've experienced. My father died when I was a 11-year-old boy, and I know this. Another big stat is prisons are filled with kids without fathers, or grown up
Hmm.
kids without fathers, and I
Yeah.
saw it. I saw it in my own life. There were opportunities for me to go way off the wrong path because I didn't have a father figure. So what do you guys do in order to keep them and steer them on the right path?
Yeah, so from, my childhood experience, I grew up going to methadone clinics to get my mom's weekly distribution. I grew up in AA hallways or NA hallways, and I even sat with the methadone clinic of one of the largest methadone distributors in Portland, Oregon. And they ran the local city clinic, and I said, "What do you do for the kids?" And she said, "Nothing. There's nothing. We keep their parents off street drugs." And I thought to myself, that is simply not enough.
Right.
My husband and I, we served in ministry for a long time, and we value the church. We value ministry. We were campus pastors and served in children's ministry. And even though this deep desire was on my heart to serve these kids, I thought, well, they come through our doors, but not all of these kids do. And so, my kids, they grow up with piano teachers and sports camps and church camps, and these kids don't ever get that opportunity. So, specifically, the concept is that we would host a 1 day camp once a month where the kid, every first Saturday of the month, these children could just become members of the movement. They can get dropped off. Their parent can have respite. They could meet with their counselor. They could go to their AA or their NA meeting. They could have a day off just to take care of themselves, to help them recover as they may be in rehab. And the kids would come and they would learn life skill teaching. They would have an inspirational message. They would get, a gospel message. There would be food and fun and entertainment. So all the things that kids experience is at these wonderful camps: woodworking, welding, mechanics, homesteading, sports activities, sports coaches, they would get in our 1 day camps once a month, and they could come for free.
Wow. Wow. Do you have any particular stories or success stories that stick out for you? Any particular children that you've personally been impacted by?
One time, this was actually in church ministry, though. I was with a girl who was adopted, and I've walked with this girl all her life, and since she was a child, now she's just recently bought her first home. But I remember this feeling of like, I'm not loved.
Yeah.
I mean nothing. And I know that feeling so well, because you question your value and your worth when you're a child who's experienced this. Like, the people who are meant to care for me can't really, they're not well. They can't care for themselves. But that doesn't, compute or relate. And one of the biggest things is that exposing to this girl that there's no real reconciliation. Like, I'm my trade is finance, right? And so in finance, things have to reconcile. And one of the things that I see with these children is that the world offers no reconciliation. There's no mending that can come through anything that's out there. That it's
Right.
not, there's nothing tangible. And so being able to connect this young woman with an intangible love and knowledge of her worth and her value in this world, I've watched it play into her. And she's, even as an adult, has brought it up to me how much me pouring hope and Jesus into her, it gave her the opportunity to believe in herself and to see her value and worth. And so that little girl, it speaks to me so much, to say there's so many children that I'll never get the opportunity to serve inside of a church. And I just hope that this camp will bring those kids to us.
Yeah. There's nothing like experiencing love. I mean, that is the ultimate purpose and meaning of life. There's literally nothing greater than that. I love the movie Ben-Hur. Remember the old Charlton Heston movie? It's just at the time when Hollywood was Christian, and it's just an epic film. And I'll just never forget that scene where he's in bondage to slavery, and the Romans the Roman leadership was planning on having him basically starve to death and die. And they refused to give him any water to drink as he was
Mm-hmm.
going through this trail of tears kind of thing. And then they stop at a well, and everybody's drinking water, but they push him away, and they won't let him go near any life sustaining sustenance. And he just falls down to the ground. He starts crying out to God, why have you abandoned me? And right there in that scene, you see hands touching his head and just lifting him up off the ground, and then giving him
Mm-hmm.
all of this water to drink. And it's Christ.
Right.
It's the Christ figure there, who's the only person on the planet that's showing him that love, and
Mm-hmm.
it transforms his life. Everything comes into focus when you encounter that kind of love.
Right.
What can the audience do? Our audience do here in their own day-to-day lives and their own localities to help kids in their area who are suffering under these kinds of circumstances?
That's exactly why we started the movement, is because even in myself, I struggled to, like, where do I find these kids? How do I reach them? How do I touch them? And if you know that we're dealing with 1 in 8 are
Right.
experiencing said trauma, then they're all they're all around us.
Yeah.
Um, but it does seem so widespread, and they're not that I've found specific programs for the specific demographic. There's a lot of programs for children in foster care, and thank God for those programs. But I encourage people to look for opportunities to use your life experience and your hardships and your story that you've overcome to empower the next generation, whether that's volunteering at a local resource or a church or at some other community event. There's Big Brothers and Sisters, there's the Boys and Girls Club, there's a ton of other opportunities. But our ultimate hope is that churches and communities around the nation would adopt the movement messenger camp concept, and that it would franchise to be partnered, where you could find a movement partner and a camp to volunteer and provide your skill set at.
That's so cool. Did I hear, are you a Texas girl?
I do. I am originally from Texas, and I just moved back
Oh, you
1 year ago. I was in Oregon for 22 years, so I got stuck
Wow.
in the
Oh, so
rain.
you've escaped, or well, I know there's a lot of wonderful patriots out in rural Oregon. We follow the Greater Idaho movement alike, but yeah, well, I say that too. 'Cause I did a little research on you, of course, but I also, one of the first things I always think of, particularly with Texans who are doing things like you're doing, just that can-do spirit of Texans. I mean, there's nothing that stops a Texan. I don't know what it is. You guys just are the innovation and the ability to turn lemons into lemonade in just all these amazing ways. So kudos to you guys. That's coming from a Connecticut kid. So growing up in the New York area, uh, that does bring it up. I mean, we have lots of people watching right now. How can they get involved and help with the movement messenger? It just sounds like such a wonderful organization.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I would ask everybody to connect with us on social. We are in launch mode and build mode. So we have 3.5 acres where we're building a multi-purpose facility to host the camps on. And so, like, follow along, stay connected. Go to our website, go to our social media platforms at Movement Messenger. Share this video, tell your friends. Everybody I talk to about this, it touches them in a way that's so powerful, because everybody has a relation to something or someone who had substance abuse. People can also give. And then we also have a sign up to volunteer. If you want to come to Texas, we live on the greatest lake in Texas. It's beautiful out here. We're going to have tiny homes for all of our volunteers, and a great time on Lake Travis, as well as an opportunity to serve at a camp. So you could come and volunteer.
Oh, and all you got to do, actually, gang, is just click on the link below. That's where you'll see everything that Natalie is doing. Look, I just love to highlight Patriots. We're making a difference and helping to build a world of faith, family, and freedom, and bring healing to people's lives. And that's exactly what Natalie is doing. Make sure to click on that link below, and you too can support a child suffering in a household of addiction today, right now. As you speak, you can change someone's life. It's just absolutely amazing, all in the name of faith, family, and freedom. Click on that link below right now. Natalie, you're a treasure. Thank you so much, and God's
Oh, thank you,
rich
Dr. Steve.
blessings on your amazing work. Welcome back home where you belong,
Thank you.
I'm sure. So God bless.
Thank you. Appreciate it.